Recording in progress.
Check. When did I want to do it?
Good evening, everyone. The meeting of the Bedford Public Schools School Committee is called to order. It is Monday, April 6th at 7:01 p.m. We're conducting this meeting hybrid. Everyone, all the elected committee members are here in person. Welcome to Wendy Carlson, our newest member tonight. We will start with a roll call vote. Wendy. Here. Angel.
Here.
Here. Here. I'm here as well. All five of us are here. We do have a forum. Our student representative Sophia is not joining us tonight. Neither is Kim Howell, our military family representative. So before we turn to our agenda, I just wanted to give a brief update to everyone here. At our most recent meeting, the school committee received an update from the district's human resources lead regarding the superintendent's evaluation. After consulting with legal counsel on next steps, we plan to engage our Massachusetts Association of School Committees representative to obtain additional guidance and resources to support a thorough and effective evaluation process. We remain committed to incorporating stakeholder input and will continue to keep the community informed as this work progresses. So that will appear on a future agenda, and we'll keep everyone informed about what is happening with our process. Turning to our agenda, the first thing on the agenda is the public comment period. As a reminder, the public is invited to comment during the meeting in accordance with Bedford Public Schools Policy BEDH. Please say your name and full address for the record and keep your comments to 3 minutes or less. Once the public comment period closes, members of the public will not be able to make comments or address questions to any speakers or members of the committee. We ask that you refrain from using the chat or Q&A functions in Zoom after the public comment section has closed. So if you are attending our webinar virtually, if you could just raise your virtual hand, but we'll start in the room. Would anyone wish to make a public comment tonight? Yes, Mr. Buchbinder. Yes, you should. Oh, perfect.
It's to bring your own chair kind of effect.
That works.
Nathan Cooper, 608 Springs Road. Earlier this year, the district introduced school climate surveys as part of the strategic plan, with the expectation that they would be administered twice per year to students, staff, families. Those surveys were described as a key tool for measuring belonging, safety, and engagement, and for informing how the district evaluates its own progress. So I want to ask directly, when should the community expect the spring administration of that survey? At the same time, we've seen strong engagement from other feedback efforts, like the Healthy School Hours process. And we saw results from that shared relatively quickly. In contrast, the results from the fall climate survey have not yet been shared publicly. And now it's unclear whether the spring survey will be conducted at all. That creates a real inconsistency. More broadly, we're now seeing multiple approaches to gathering feedback being used across the district, whether it's structured surveys, targeted outreach on specific topics, or small group discussions, with differences in timing, format, and how results are shared. Taken together, that makes it harder to understand how input from students, staff, and families is being collected in a consistent or representative way. I would also note that the committee has recently discussed the need to strengthen how it evaluates areas like professional culture, which depend heavily on consistent and representative input from staff, students, and families. That makes it even more important that the district maintain clear, reliable feedback mechanisms. If feedback truly is a priority, and if these surveys and other engagement efforts are part of how the district measures progress against its strategic goals, then consistency in both collecting and sharing feedback matters. Without it, it becomes difficult to understand how the district is assessing whether things are improving, staying the same, or getting worse, especially in a year with significant changes. So if the plan has shifted, it would be important to clearly explain whether the spring climate survey is still happening, when the fall survey results will be shared publicly, and what the current plan is for measuring school climate this year. Thank you. And I have printed copies of my comments, if that's helpful.
Oh, that's okay. I don't feel that. Thank you.
There's one.
We'll turn to that. Actually, we'll go through this. You mind just raising your hand again if you wish to give public comment? Yes, on the blue sweater.
Third proprietor, 608 Springs Road. I'm a current Lane and JGMS parent, and I have 2 children who graduated from Bedford High School. I also work in the Academic Achievement Center at the high school as an ESP. I'm here today for 2 reasons. First, to express my sadness and frustration about the way the dissolution of the Department of Student Services in grades 6 through 12 has gone about, and also the way it has been relayed to the public. Secondly, to address the renewal of the superintendent's contract, which I understand will be voted on today. There's been a lot of confusing messaging about what is happening with the dissolution of the Department of Student Services at the middle and high school, and a lot of equivocation and mixed messaging coming directly from the superintendent's office and members of the school committee disseminating the superintendent's messaging. Some of this has resulted in, hopefully unintentionally, defamatory statements about the staff in the AAC and Skills Center. I understand that the district office does not wish to unnecessarily cause concern for parents, but by refusing to address, you are dissolving an entire department and suggesting to the public that things aren't going to substantially change is insulting not only to the people who work in the AAC and Skills Center, but also to the parents whose children rely on these services. This includes my own children. Holding focus meetings on short notice at inconvenient times does not contribute to a feeling that the superintendent's office is interested in how this affects the community or how they feel about it. In light of the general confusion and lack of resolution surrounding staffing issues, it seems premature to be discussing the renewal of the superintendent's contract at this time. You may feel that as a staff member in Bedford Schools in a department that is being dissolved, that I have to put bias in this, because I mean, obviously I do. I agree it appears that way. People I care about are affected by the decisions the superintendent is making. The vast majority of these people are students. I'm also a taxpaying voter of the Bedford community, and I've lived here for 17 years. My opinions are no less valid for being personally acquainted with the impact of these decisions. At the last school committee meeting, members of this body discussed how difficult it is to measure culture in school. Have you ever directly asked the faculty and staff about this through safe channels? If the performance review you are getting relies primarily on evidence gathered from the superintendent himself, you are not getting a fair review of how he is performing. You don't have to renew this contract today. In order to demonstrate your respect for the community and the students, give the superintendent an unbiased performance review with clear metrics administered by a neutral party, then make the results publicly available. Bedford students and taxpayers deserve our due diligence in this. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the room wishing to give public comments tonight?
All right, good evening, everybody. My name is Karen Morrissey. I live at 31 Wildwood Drive. My daughter is a freshman at BHS, and my son attends a residential school due to his profound autism. I'm speaking tonight to voice strong support for the renewal of Cliff's contract. A core responsibility of the superintendent is to manage the budget. This most recent budget cycle and the town meeting vote demonstrates his proficiency. Cliff worked with the select board, finance committee, and the school committee to propose a budget that ultimately was approved at annual town meeting. Throughout the budget process, Cliff and the finance director made clear that special education expenses were not discretionary. And for a family like ours, who has a child in an out of district and intensive special education placement, we never worried that the superintendent's budget won't provide for our son's needs. In addition, our daughter at BHS is looking forward to many robust course offerings that have not been cut or limited due to the budget constraint. Her favorite class is foods, and she hopes to take foods 2 next year. I first met Cliff when he was new to Bedford, and I joined one of his walks in the woods. He has proven to be a leader who sets strategic objectives and takes on big projects, such as school course structure in math, potential shifts in school start times, and anti-Semitism. In closing, there is a Chinese expression, 风雨过后见彩虹, that translates to, after the storm comes the rainbow. I look forward to the work ahead that Cliff will lead as Bedford School Superintendent. Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Before we move online, is there anyone else in the room wishing to provide public comment? You would like to come on up.
Good evening. I'm Betsy Wilson. I'm the library and media specialist at John Glenn Middle School, and I'm the lead educator of the Celtics at Playbook Initiative. Lead educator is a little bit of a misleading title because really I'm communication and logistics, and the true leaders are Matt and Adriana, who Matt you'll be meeting in a little bit when he does a presentation. And I just wanted to take a minute and say some thank yous tonight. Thank you to all of you, first of all, for inviting us into your meeting. But thank you to Superintendent Schwang for bringing this initiative to Bedford. When I was at one of my trainings in Boston with the Celtics Playbook Initiative, Megan Freeman, who is one of the leaders of Project 351, shared with me that every year Project 351 presents at the Superintendent Summit. It was after one of those presentations that Superintendent Schwang initiated conversation with her and was super enthusiastic about the initiative. And he is the reason that we have this here in Bedford now. So thank you for bringing this to Bedford. And thank you to Mr. Hartunian, who's here tonight as well. Once he had his trainers in place, he brought me on as the lead educator. And I was really grateful for the opportunity because I believe in initiatives that center around student voice. I think the most powerful way to impact a school community is by amplifying their voices. And this initiative does that. So thank you to Mr. Hartunian for identifying me and bringing me in. Thank you to Matt and Abriana. Abriana is not feeling well tonight, but Matt is here. They have exceeded all expectations with their leadership and facilitation and energy for this initiative. They are the real reason that it is successful. Thank you to the 24 student ambassadors who said yes. Who some of them are here tonight. They didn't really know what they were saying yes to, but they had the courage to say, I'm in, and got some great training about being an upstander in their community, and they will have an impact on their schools, and I believe any community that they are part of after having had this experience. Thank you also to the anti-hate task force. They had us into a meeting as well and expressed support and really felt the importance of this initiative as well. So I look forward to you hearing from the lead trainer Matt and possibly some student ambassadors if they're feeling courageous. And if you have any follow-up conversations or information that you want from me about the initiative, you can grab me by email and I'd be happy to share. So thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in the room wishing to provide public comment tonight? Seeing none, Cliff, is there anyone in the virtual room? Okay.
Noah, you are on.
I'm Noah Gilbertson, 3 Norian Drive. I'm a student at Bedford High School, and I'd like to start by commending Cliff for some of the work you've done in the district, being active in the Bedford community, working with the Anti-Hate and Bias Task Force, and your willingness to involve students on the Healthy School Hours Initiative. That matters, and thank you. But remember when the game plan was relaxed, people won't notice. Well, about that, I mean, they've noticed, students have noticed, families have noticed, staff have noticed, and you can't go around making major decisions about a school district and expecting them to go unseen. And this was once one of the greatest and strongest school systems in the state, and now, well, it's not. And it is unacceptable that students who have earned the respect of so many would leave a meeting with you feeling like the role of student representative is about serving you instead of the student community. That's a problem. And then after the resignation of a principal who was respected and trusted, a genuine community member, you appoint the assistant superintendent as acting principal of Bedford High School. Really? That's the move? I mean, that's not a leadership transition. That's corporate musical chairs. And the concern is that the circle making these decisions is getting smaller and smaller and smaller, not broader. So people are asking questions, Cliff. I mean, they're also asking questions about those Title IX complaints from staff, plural complaints. Remember those? I mean, when morale drops and when experienced teachers leave, when teachers feel sidelined, students pay the price. Not you, not the central office, students. So, Cliff, this isn't about optics anymore. It's about outcomes. And if you've got an agenda and that agenda is actively hurting the schools which you are supposed to protect, then it's time for one or two options. We can change course, start listening, do what's actually best for the students, or simply put, resign. I mean, because people won't notice isn't a strategy, it's a punchline. And I don't know if this is the intended direction or just the result of the current approach, but man, this shouldn't be something that the students have to worry about, which is why I urge the school committee to not renew Superintendent Schwong's contract when it comes time. No, nobody wants to go through another superintendent search, but if it leads to a district where students, staff, and families feel heard, supported, and valued, then it's worth it. Oh, and I think we've all had enough of the AI videos and presentations. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Is there anyone else online wishing to provide public comment? If you could please raise your virtual hand. Oh, okay, one last chance. Anyone else in the room? Yes, come on up.
Hi, my name is Liz Coles, Fort Beulah Road. I'm the president of the Bedford Education Association. I'm not speaking for the Bedford Education Association tonight, but from my own personal experiences. I have my shirt on. I just came from the Lexington rally. In Lexington, there were 165 non-professional status teachers who received pink slips. Every person in that district who's not professional status received a layoff notice. In addition, there were 65 professional status teachers who were told their jobs were cut, and they could go apply for any of the 165 positions that were available. In Concord, similar size cuts are happening. Their professional status teachers' jobs are being cut, and they're being just involuntarily transferred. No agency, no choice. They're just being told what their new jobs are. In Bedford, we've been very, very careful, and I appreciate all of your support in that process, of honoring all of our teachers, making sure that our non-professional status teachers still feel wanted and needed and supported in this community, so that they're not going to leave and stay with us and support us. And our professional status teachers have been given agency to apply for any open positions, a lot of choice, a lot of discussions. And so I'd like to thank everybody for transparency in that, and making it a place where it feels like we're trying to get through the budget situations that people are dealing with all over the state. So thank you.
Before we close public comment, is there anyone else either online or in the room wishing to provide public comment? I'll wait a few seconds. Okay. Seeing none, we will close the public comment period and move on to our agenda. The first item being our consent agenda and vote. Superintendent Schmidt.
So there are 3 field trip requests, that require your approval, and a. So did people give the acceptance getting there? To-
Yeah.
Okay, so we're in that, donation from, the parent company of Bottom Chat for Grant Foundation.
Being it's a consent agenda, all items on the consent agenda are considered to be routine and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a member of the committee so requests, in which event the item will be considered in its normal sequence on the agenda. So going around, does anyone wish to pull anything off the consent agenda? Wendy? No. There you go. No. Sheila? No. Brad? No.
Oh, sorry, I asked the minutes for the last meeting.
Hearing none, then may I hear a motion that the school committee approve the consent agenda as presented, including the minutes for March 10th, 2026, out of state school year 26 field trip request, Take Flight Aerial Adventures in Kittery, Maine, April 2026. Overnight and out of state school year 26 field trip request, annual DECA national competition, Atlanta, Georgia, April 2026. Overnight school year 26 field trip request, Mass JCL convention in Barnstable, Mass, May 2026. And a gift acceptance of $1,536 to Lane from a whole Stop and Shop's parent company from a parent fundraiser.
So moved.
Second. Brad has moved, Sheila has seconded, roll call vote, Wendy. Angel.
Yes.
Sheila. Yes. Brad.
Yes.
I'm a yes, 5-0. The consent agenda passes. Moving on to our next agenda item. Is the annual school choice hearing and vote, Superintendent Strong.
So this is an annual requirement set by DESE for each community to make a decision about participation in school choice. Bedford has not historically participated, and I'm not recommending that we start now. However, it is something that we may want to consider in the future, given our kind of declining enrollment. School choice has offered the ability to increase revenue and offer the opportunity for Bedford education to students who do not reside in Bedford. We already do that through the MEDCO program and through our partnership with Hanscom, so we have a lot of experience with that, but it is something that should be very carefully considered with a lot of planning and thought for all the implications for the intended and unintended. So I recommend that you continue the current policy for the public school.
Thank you. I will start with you, Wendy.
I would vote to continue with what we're doing right now.
Okay, do you have any comments or questions for Superintendent Sean on this?
No, I guess my only question was how much, I was trying to look this up, how much would it be if we brought students in? I know we would be considering that this year, but for the next.
Yeah, so unless the state has, it's been long, $5,000 per student plus any cost related to special education. So we would not bear the additional cost of special education. The sending district would be billed back for that. I don't know if the state's there's been a lot of discussion to update that $5,000 because that was set in the 1990s. But typically what districts do is they look at their classes, and if they can bring in more students without adding a teacher, that would be additional revenue and additional opportunity without increasing costs. That's how it typically works. But most of the districts who participate in MEDCO, which is also a form of school choice, do not participate, and we also have Hanscom, so we're a lot of.
I think that was my only question. I was surprised about the $5,000 when I looked at that. I was like, oh, and that makes sense from the 1990s.
Yeah.
And the cost per student is in the 20s now.
Yeah.
That's all.
Thank you, Angel.
Just a quick question that popped into my head recently, which is if we did in fact opt into this as a mechanism to increase, let's say, the enrollment, and then the following year, or let's say 2 years from now, decide to vote to no longer allow it, what happens to the students that came in through that program? Do they
I
get to pay,
believe
or?
once you accept you have to finish their education. I can double check on that, but I believe that's the policy. Otherwise, it'd be rather disadvantaged.
Okay, that was my only question. Thank you.
Sheila, no questions. Brad,
No questions.
my only question is, if we were to participate in this in a future year, is there a minimum number of students that must be taken, or how is it distributed amongst the grades?
It is completely up to the committee to decide how many vacancies they want to put into the process. Because it is a required hearing, I think we should also probably make sure if anyone has a question about it before we vote.
Keeping that in mind, does anyone either here in person or attending virtually have a question or comment in regards to just this annual school choice hearing? Please raise your hand. Ben?
You meant, would it have to go before the town to vote, or is the school board only?
I believe the MGL provides for this, it's the school committee's decision. I can double check, but that is my understanding.
Yeah, that's my understanding. Is there anyone online wishing to make a comment on this, the issue of the annual school choice hearing? Anyone else in person? Okay, then we'll move along to a vote, or I'm sorry, may I hear that the Bedford Public Schools School Committee votes to decline to participate in interdistrict school choice for the 2026-2027 school year.
So moved.
Second, Brad has moved, Sheila has seconded, roll call vote, Wendy. Angel,
Yes.
Sheila. Yes. Brad,
Yes.
I'm a yes, it's 5-0, the motion passes. Right. Our next agenda item is the corrected school year 27 district calendar, where we updated the first day and last day of school revote. Superintendent Strong.
There was, I don't know if it was a typo or, but it was, I think the way that it had been structured violated a provision of the contract, and we looked at it, it was, let us know. So it's just, clarifying that the first day of school is, September 2nd for students, with the first day for staff, for the special updates being August 31st and September 1st, which also changed the last day of school to Thursday, June 17th. No other changes.
Okay. And again, just to clarify, day one will be September 2nd, the last day will now be June 17th. Wendy, if you have any questions or comments?
I do actually, December, it says early dismissal, if you look at the actual proposed calendar, but it doesn't have a date. So I know that you can look on the side, but I think that's just the edit that I would make, so it would be.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And then one other one is, again, it's just a typo, August 31st and September 1st, September.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are my only two.
Thank you, Eagle Eyes.
Angel,
No question.
Sheila, no questions, Brad.
Just to make sure I'm reading this correctly, so, the last day of school is June 17th. And the next day is a holiday because of June 19th. So am I interpreting this correctly, that if we have a snow day, that means that we go to school on June 21st?
So if you're talking about June 18. Actually, okay, yes, I
So it says school
believe,
closed on June 18th.
yes, I believe that because the 19th falls on a Saturday, state holiday rules dictate that Friday is the holiday, so yes. Next year, if there are any snow days at all, we push into the next week.
The following week.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay,
I will note that this is the earliest we can start under the current contractual provisions.
yeah.
It may become a discussion, as it has in many districts, about starting a little earlier to avoid things like that, but people have various opinions about that.
Okay. That's unfortunate, because that's clearly not gonna be a valuable instruction day if it happens, so,
Well, we're in that situation this year.
okay. Yeah, no questions, there's not much we can do about it.
Hope for no snow, I suppose. I have no questions as well. So may I hear a motion that this, with Wendy's typographical edits? May I hear a motion that the school committee approves the revised school year 2026-2027 calendar as presented? Yes. Wendy moves,
Second.
Angel seconds, roll call vote, Wendy.
Yes.
Angel,
Yes.
Sheila.
Yes.
Brad.
Yes.
I'm a yes, 5-0, the motion passes. Right. Moving right along to our next item, which is the anti-hate bias task force update and playbook initiative presentation, Superintendent Strong and the playbook initiative team.
I feel like we should have set up the table.
I agree.
So I'm gonna move the table for there. And it's not enough. We can just do that. Okay. I'm joined tonight by lots of people. We have our co-chairs, Todd Bressler and Karen, but we are also joined by Principal John Hartunian, lead educator Betsy Wilson, our lead trainer Matt Karen, and many members of our it looks like our JGMS ambassadors. I'm gonna invite Ann and Todd just to share highlight of the work over the last 3 months before I invite Matt and team to come up and present. You have a pretty comprehensive list of what the task force has been up to since the last update, which was, I believe, in November. Todd and Ann, would you like to share a highlight for the committee before we turn it over to kids?
Sure, I would just say of note, one of the things that we've seen working well is, at the beginning of the school year, we, as a task force, we, rolled out the incident response and reporting protocol. Cliff and the, school leadership team rolled this out to the staff. As a task force, I would say as a win, we have seen the protocol work well in practice, and it's quickly becoming a model. The protocol, in short, seeks to do 4 things. The reason why we introduced the protocol was because the feedback from the community we got is that we were not doing these 4 things consistently. And I would say today, as compared to at this time last school year, we're doing these 4 things much more consistently now. This is what the protocol asks us to do, that we're doing much better now. When an incident occurs, validate the impact on the target. The incident is real, it happened, it's not going to be swept under the rug. Conduct an investigation, no matter what level of evidence or discovery is available or unavailable. Conduct the investigation, don't mail it in. We're doing that very well. The third is, depending on what the investigation uncovers, provide the right level of education or intervention for the aggressor. This, contrary to popular public opinion, this is infrequently punitive. In most cases, an incident is not necessarily coming from a place of absolute hate or maliciousness. Therefore, the intervention is education, awareness of the harm that it's caused, not necessarily punitive measure. And then 4th, communication, governing communication standards based on the impact, the number of targets, how open or how closed the incident was, and based on the outcome of the investigation, communicate in a consistent way, whether that means to families of those impacted, to the broader school community, to the entire district community, to the entire Bedford community, at different stages. So those 4 things: validation to the target, conducting the investigation as thoroughly as possible, providing the right level of education and intervention, and then communication. Nice job.
Yeah, I guess that's definitely a huge win for us, especially in the time frame that we're looking at. So our hope is for this procedure to then get more consistently applied, and then also gives an opportunity to look at real-time data, which is something the task force is hopefully going to get to do a little bit at the end of this year, but definitely into the beginning of next year. to look at just how Bedford kind of stacks up on this more consistent protocol. One of the other kind of things we've been working on as a task force are things around curriculum and professional development. That's something that, through the leadership team at the schools, led by Kelly Williamson and Akil Montesir, they're really taking the leadership on moving this into practice in the schools, with teachers. We have a teacher advisory group that's been working, with them for the last several months to come up with how are we going to evaluate all of our curriculum areas, starting with social sciences and ELA. So that work is going to be, ongoing. It's a deep dive, as opposed to just a surface level look at curriculum. So I'm really hopeful that this is something that can yield some really promising areas for improvement and, fill in some of the gaps that are clearly missing from our curriculum, while also celebrating the wins that we have currently or may have had in the past that we want to bring back. I know one of the concerns some teachers had with the ELA curriculum that got implemented is it's great in helping kids learn how to read, but they lost some beloved units around things like identity and belonging and understanding cultural awareness. So we're hoping to kind of maybe pull from those where things are really good and fit well into the new ELA curriculum. So that work is ongoing, but it's going to be more at the district leadership and staff level versus the task force level. We'll be obviously advisors as they need, but we really want to put the onus on our staff who know our kids in our district the best and the curriculum the best to be able to help make those decisions. The other thing that's really exciting about our task force is we're moving into some more community engagement with partners in the community. We've been starting to look at ways that the community can become more involved in this work. The MLK breakfast in January was very well received by the community, and many community members have reached out to Akil Montesir and the PC. How can we do this, but more consistently around other topics of bias and hate that we feel the community needs more education about? So Akil has put together this really robust and detailed like film and dialogue series to run throughout the next couple of school years. And the PDC and other community partners are going to be working with them to flesh that out and how would that look like. We're hoping to make this a regular event, similar to how Rotary has brought back community dinners. One of the first events that the PDC is coming along this same lines is we're having an anti-Semitism 101 training coming up on April 30th, of which you are all invited.
Save the date, April 30th.
It's a Thursday. We'll have dinner starting at 5:30 with mingling and getting to know each other. And then we'll have the program start at 6 o'clock, go from us for a couple of hours. And our partners, Project Shema, have been wonderful. We met with our presenter, and it's really going to be a really great and robust community education night. So we're really looking forward to that. Please sign up early. We do have a limit of 30 participants, so please sign up so that you get a slot.
We'll have a waiting list.
Where is that?
So the PDC has sent out their newsletter. If you're currently on our newsletter, you already have it. If you don't, please email pdcbedford@gmail.com.
I will probably push it out.
It's also going to be in the school newsletters next week.
It's gonna be right
We'll
here,
be
right?
here in the
It'll be
LDI.
in this room.
But thank you both. And Mr. Hartunian, we're gonna invite you, Matt, Betsy, whoever is planning to share, to come on up.
Where do you want me?
You can put it wherever you want, but I will show you. Gonna share the screen. Give me one sec.
I'm taking cues from my lead educator.
Okay, we're gonna,
Not that.
okay. Right. Take it away.
So today I come to present to the Playbook Initiative. This was brought upon me. I am a senior at Bedford High School, Matt Karen. And yeah. So Playbook as a whole, Playbook is a program that was founded by Project 351. It's sponsored by New Balance and the Boston Celtics. The grand mission of the initiative is to eliminate identity bias discrimination in schools. And they do that through creating this process and this initiative that we have implemented into the middle school, this year. The focus is educating middle school students, like was just talked about, you know, creating a system where hate is eliminated through education. And some of their main focuses are inclusion, diversity, and equity, safe and respectful environments. That's what we're trying to create, and standing up against injustice. So how it works, so we selected 25 middle school students. This was selected based off their leadership skills, how active they are in their community, and all, you know, their personality traits and everything. Just how I was selected and how Aubriana, who is not here, we were selected based off leadership and all those other things. This includes 3 high school student led, so me and Aubriana, we lead 3 workshops throughout this process with interactive activities and scenario-based discussion that helps educate and promote the initiative that we're trying to put on. The program goals are listed on the slide: build a more inclusive community, raise awareness on identity and diversity issues, encourage open, respectful dialogue, empower students as upstanders, leaders, and foster mentorship between high school and middle school students. These are the main 5 goals that the playbook has implemented, that we are trying to implement on the community. So me and Aubriana were brought into this. Mr. Artinian came up to me one morning and I said yes to him that night. We were brought in, I had no experience, knew nothing about it. It was Bedford's first year of doing this initiative. Dr. Schwalman brought it upon us, and I am grateful to be selected to be doing this. We were trained by the Celtics outreach, Celtics community outreach team. We went to the Arbor Rec Center. We were trained there. Basically, they walked me and Aubriana through these workshops. They walked us through the workshops, taught us how to facilitate one, taught us the goals of the initiative, and how to train the student ambassadors to kind of, you know, put this onto the community. We prepared to lead the workshops. It was many times that we met, and that we were trained through Zoom calls, in person. We had 2 in-person meetings. One was at our rec center, which is the Celtics training facility, and then Hood Park, which is Project 351's headquarters. And then we had plenty of Zoom calls. This was not, I didn't just walk down to the middle school and start teaching them just based off my personal experience. We were trained extensively on how to teach these middle school students. So the sample workshop, what these workshops look like. So we've had 3 of them. Workshop 1 is just with our towns. We just did with Bedford. Workshop 2 is with your partner school, which I'll discuss in a few minutes. And then workshop 3 is also with the partner school, just at the other school. A sample workshop agendas. What this is, what our first workshop looked like. So everything's based off, you know, the basketball idea. It's sponsored by the Boston Celtics. So you have the first quarter, second quarter, all of that. We started off with personal program introduction, just, you know, introducing them. In fact, before this, since it was Bedford's first year, we brought the students together to kind of just give them a brief overview, break the ice with them, since no one's heard about this before. So we did that. We brought them back in. We had an introduction, and then we did an icebreaker, which was the F game. This was, you know, we always start with a game in all of our workshops. They're middle school kids. They want to be able to, you know, have fun while still learning. This was a good way to break the ice, get them warmed up into it. Second quarter, we did participant introductions and leadership definitions, again, bringing that idea onto them. And then we always had a break in between, so they weren't, you know, sitting down. Third quarter was agree, disagree, or unsure. So we did this, all 3 workshops. This was agree, disagree, unsure happened in all 3 workshops. We set up, we put a purposely vague prompt up on the screen, and the students had to think about it. and then walk to the parts of the room, agree, disagree, and assure, and how their opinions reflected with that statement. Then we had an open group conversation. Some students changed their opinions. We should tell them that's okay and that's part of this. They're able to freely move around the room. Again, this is all open discussion and to try and just teach them about everything that we learned and all of that. And then fourth quarter scenario discussions. This was again done in all 3 workshops. The Celtics Playbook Initiative provides us with me and Aubriana, physical playbook with over 100 scenarios. These scenarios were created by middle school students in Project 351. These scenarios we then present to them and we have a discussion with the students on how to act on it, what their thoughts are, how to be an upstander versus bystander. They're all prompts and situations that might not be a pleasant experience to experience, and that's why we're talking about them and opening that dialogue up with them. Then we always ended with something. In this scenario is Kaizen. Kaizen stands for the constant state of improvement. Celtics actually have a beam on it in the Hard Rock Center. And we showed them that we're here to improve, we're here to become better people and leaders. And again, we had workshop 2 and 3. Workshop 2 was in Holliston, which was our partnered school, and workshop 3 was our workshop here. Here's some pictures from our workshops. We could see we did a rock, paper, scissors game, showing how, again, seems like a small fun game. That was when they played rock, paper, scissors with each other. Once one of them won, they went behind, kind of created a train cheering them on. And we discussed after that how it felt being an upstander versus bystander, how it felt cheering someone on and all of that. And we also have our whiteboard leadership definitions. There was a lot of brainstorming that was done throughout this whole process in all 3 workshops. And that's just one example of all the students came up with their own definition of leadership and getting them to think about that. And the right, you also can see that's kind of in the midst of a workshop, them working through scenario discussion there. So as I previously mentioned, every school part of this program is partnered with another school. There were over 20 schools that were a part of this program. I don't know the exact number off the top of my head. We were paired with Holliston. Holliston is about an hour down south. I had never heard of it before. It's a small town. We worked directly with them. So through our training, we worked with the 2 trainers from them and their lead trainer. We had a lot of discussion, a lot of Zoom calls with them, preparing for the workshops with them. So workshop 2 and 3, again, workshop 2 was down there, workshop 3 was here. Coming with a partnered school created a lot of impact, I feel like, for the middle school students. They're able to walk into a different middle school that they've never been in before. They're able to talk with different students, diversity, all of that. Different connections between people were made. I even saw at the end of workshop 2, after they just met each other, there's a lot of friendships made, which is always good. And they're able to really step into another student's shoes. We have our group of 24 students. And they're all able to step in each other's shoes. But they see each other in the hallways, going down to another school, and seeing new kids they've never seen before, making new friends. They're able to really dig into someone else's shoes, and see what they might experience. So it was a big impact to have a partner in school part of this. Now, I've discussed a lot about us training them. We were trained, now we enact that training onto them. That's all learning for them. They now take that learning in our day of unity and they put it into actions. So our Day of Unity has yet to happen. We're currently discussing our date somewhere mid-May. That's our final event for the year, the Celtics Playbook Initiative, where we bring them together and have them kind of create a product. Doesn't have to be one product, will be multiple products. And it puts that learning into action. So this year, we are in the midst of discussing about the video. We felt that this year there was a lack of awareness about the initiative. Our 24 middle school students obviously knew about the initiative and knew all about it. But we wanna put it out there, put it in the high school, middle school, and overall just the district. We want the goal of this is for those 24 middle school students to become upstanders and go out into the community and, stand up for what's right, and fighting against, hate, bias, all of that. But we don't want it to just be those 24 students, and that's why we think a video, a student-made video, so we're gonna have the middle schoolers make a video, post it and have everyone kind of learn about what it's about. Hopefully they can, take that to heart and become better people. We are not just doing the video. We've had students create clubs based off this. There's currently an active club in the middle school that's being created and started because they felt so motivated by this initiative. There's posters, mini workshops for them to do. There's a lot of actions that are gonna be part of this. And it's really great to see after all the, effort and learning that they have put in and, taken. Thank you. Any questions? I also want to invite if there's any of the student ambassadors to come up and say anything. If not, totally fine. But I'm open for questions and for them
You
to.
always wave if you don't want to say anything, you say hi, we're student.
They're here.
Can you go back to the slide where they're at the Auerbach Center? I just want to add something. This one. So the picture of Matt, and first of all, Aubriana at the last minute was not feeling well tonight, so like Matt wasn't planning to present the whole thing by himself, and he did, and you did a great job, as always. Tommy Barros is on the right, and Dave, I can't remember his last name. Dave Hoffman, they're the people that do all the community outreach for the Boston Celtics. And Matt and Aubriana wouldn't tell you this part, so I will tell you that they were singled out, not like as Bedford, but each as individuals whose level of engagement and participation in all of the trainings earned them Celtics tickets awards. They each earned 2 tickets. Matt took his dad, Aubriana took her mom, who loves Jaylen Brown, and they got to see some game day operations, behind the scenes stuff. They got to go down on the court and take some pictures, and they earned that individually by themselves. So we had really even though it was our first year, we had stellar trainers. So I just want to make sure that gets shared as well. And can you give one extra wave? Haley Cody is an 8th grader at the middle school. She is also our Project 351 ambassador for this year. So thank you, Haley, for filling both those spots. Yeah. And did you have any questions?
Yeah, thank you. We'll go around for questions. Wendy.
I just think it's awesome what you guys are doing, and I know there was a lot of work to do in the district, and I'm really excited to see what you guys are doing. The clubs in the middle school are gonna be, I think that's wonderful. I know a lot of the kids in the audience too, and so I'm so proud of all of you guys. I don't know about your shirt though.
I woke up this morning, this was the shirt I put on.
But
What's on the shirt?
it's a Hopper shirt.
Uh-oh.
Anyway, wow. I'm excited to see the product, the creating the video to explain. Whole thing, I think that could be done beautifully, and I know that there's a lot of kids who are involved in Bedford TV at this school, and I saw some of them in these pictures, and so. I think they'll have a lot of great things coming out of that. I don't think I have any, I'm very proud of you guys. Thank you guys for all the work, and I look forward to seeing it in the high school too. They would talk about that too.
Great. Angel.
I mean, first, just more of a comment, I think it's a really good example of how often our students kind of go above and beyond, right? During their educational journey in Bedford. I know Matt personally, and so it is no surprise to me that this is, you know, something that he's participating in. I have a question for you, just to say that this sounds like, it looks like it was a significant investment in time, which is not school time, right? This is extracurricular, it is outside. I know you do sports, you do other things, you work, right? So I guess my question for you though is tell me why you felt both that this was important and worth it, right? Because it clearly was a lot of work, right? And so I'd love to hear just your perspective as to why you felt this work was important.
So yeah, I mean, it took a lot of time and effort. I left one of the trainings early to go catch a football game one time. I have missed a lot of schoolwork that I have had to make up. So it definitely was a huge commitment of time for both me and Adriana. And we both definitely felt that. The reason that I chose to do this was going back to my middle school self. I was not who I was now. And, you know, I wish there was something that could teach me to be that better person, be that upstander versus doing the actions that I did in middle school. So I think, you know, it was trying to better the community and have people not become a little version of me. Obviously I've changed now, but the little version of me was not who I am now. Might have been a little more passive aggressive and said things that you might have not wanted to say. So I think me personally, that's my personal reason of I wanted to better those students. Yeah.
Awesome. Is this something that would end up being an annual project? Like, yes.
That was stated.
Yeah. And so I guess the follow-up to that then becomes if, you know, obviously Matt's a senior and is graduating, is there any kind of transition or component to this where he'll have an opportunity to kind of give some advice or whatever it is to whoever the incoming.
So Matt
trainers
was
goes
we
through?
always have a lead trainer and a deputy trainer.
Okay.
So Matt was our lead trainer, he's the senior, deputy trainer, Ariana
Oh,
is the sophomore. And we brought in also a former Project 351 ambassador, Zariah Carruthers, who is also a sophomore. So Zariah did the Bedford workshop. She didn't travel to Holliston with us. She was like an assistant deputy trainer that we had added on. So, you know, in theory, Adriana continues on and she's fully trained.
Awesome. Well, excellent. Thank you. And again, thank you for the time, effort and what this means for, you know, again, I think we've talked about over the last few meetings, like we've seen these opportunities where our older students are interacting with our younger students, right, and setting examples and kind of building that sense of community, right? Like our community needs that, I think, to start there in that school so that some of the rest of it kind of carries forward to them as they kind of grow up and get these mindsets that I think are really important. So thank you for all our work. I appreciate it.
Sure, thanks. First of all, you did a fantastic job presenting, and even more fantastic if you're pinch hitting for Ariana. So congratulations, that was really fantastic. I think, you know, it's all of our responsibilities as parents, as teachers, as community members to have these really important conversations. I think the extra special part of this is peers teaching peers, right? So congratulations to the JGMS ambassadors. I think you are amongst your peers within your school. And to be an example, to be able to talk formally and informally within the context of school, but in our community, really makes a difference. And Matt, thank you for sharing your personal journey of like, as you're reflecting back on your JGMS self. I think there's absolutely an element of
younger kids looking up to the older kids, right? So the JGMS folks, they take it probably really seriously when there's a BHS student that's actually choosing to spend their time and engage in conversations. Because there's this sort of that awe factor, but they know then they'll be coming up here to BHS at some point. So, appreciate you making room in your very busy schedule to prioritize this and to help teach the JGMS ambassadors, because I'm sure as they come up through the system, some of them might be in your role in a couple of years, and that is a great example of role model, but for the community to really not lose sight of such an important topic. So thank you to you and everyone that's involved in this project.
Thank you.
Right.
Thank you so much. Echo everything everybody said about how awesome everything is. I do have a few questions. I wanted to try to get an understanding of how many people in the middle school actually went through this? Was this everybody or was it? Yeah,
So it was 24 students,
Uh-huh.
it's usually 25, we had 24 this year.
okay,
Those students are selected
Uh-huh.
based on their leadership skills and everything that we
Okay.
discussed. They go through this process in a hope that they then go out after this is all done and enact it onto their peers. and,
Okay.
You know, have those discussions with their peers,
okay.
but the
In
actual,
an informal way, as opposed to
Yes,
some
yes.
organized workshops.
yes.
Although, as you mentioned, there's at least one student club that has emerged out of one of the ambassadors, so there's some formalization at the leadership of the student.
Yeah, but not being like, we talk to kids about being upstanders all the time, but we don't really tell them what that means
Uh-huh.
or show them what it looks like. So if you think now we have 24 kids who now something goes wrong in group chat or someone says something in the cafeteria, they might have previously identified like, this doesn't feel right, but I don't know what to do. Now they have some skills that they can model for their peers.
So is there any part of this process about trying to keep that cohort connected with each other for example, peer supported being that ambassador, that kind of thing? Is that part of this story at all, or?
It's not formally part of the initiative,
Uh-huh.
but it is something that we are working on as a district here. Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
okay.
I believe an eighth grader is also hoping to start a club at BHS as a ninth grader, right?
Yes,
Spinning off of this.
yes.
And the model is also, well, at least the way we decided to implement it, was seventh and eighth graders, so there's half and half. So again, this sort of continuity for as eighth graders, we're bringing, they'll move on to the high school, but then there'll be kids left over in eighth grade to lead, but we'll bring in a new cohort. I think of seventh and eighth grade next year, so there'll be double the eighth graders next year, and so it will self-populate hopefully with more leaders as they recruit.
Let me switch to a different kind of topic. One of the things that's kind of cool about this, I guess, or at least what I heard, I hope you liked this part of it, was that you got to interact with people from, the Celtics organization and other students who are going through this and your partner school and all that. So I'm curious to know, what have you learned about Bedford through that process?
I think, Bedford is very unique. I've gotten to work with, over the course of my life, I'm a camp counselor. I've worked with many kids throughout my life. And especially working in a school environment, I've never done that before. I was able to see, how these students can act in middle school. And how they bring themselves into that middle school. And I was able to, get a bigger sense of what Bedford, especially the middle school.
Yeah.
Like what it truly is, and what type of community we have. Yeah.
So, sounds great, sounds great. And I was curious about the same thing Angel was asking about, which is sort of how do we make this continue and so on. So I'll just put you on the spot and ask you, what advice would you have for the people who follow after you in doing your job?
I would definitely say, make sure you're, at all the trainings, on all the Zoom calls you can. It's a lot being thrown at you as a trainer.
Yeah.
I had basic knowledge, but there's a lot of knowledge that goes into this. And I would say, be your most confident self when training and, facilitating, because these kids are looking up to you every day. And you want them to look up to someone, who's in a positive light and, happy.
Make sure that we do this, yeah, that's great. Well, let me just say to everybody you did a fabulous job, and I don't wanna belittle anything that you said, but there's a whole team of people behind you. And I wanna say to all of you, this is one of those moments when the pride of being part of this school system and part of this community of Bedford makes it. This job that I'm sitting here on this table here, there's a lot of nights when I wonder why I'm doing this tonight, and I'm really happy that I'm here to hear this. This is the stuff we come to work, these people come to work every day to do, and what you come to do. So it's just great. It's one of the best things I've seen. So thank you for making my night, my month, my year. Good job.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Can I ask a follow-up question?
Sure.
Brad?
Go ahead.
So with the Playbook initiative, you guys are gonna continue it. So they do get extra, whoever the trainers are next year get to go through this entire thing again?
So
I just wanted to.
they'll go through the whole process.
Great. Hard to go after that, so I echo copy everything that Brad already said. It's apparent you have tremendous leadership skills that will serve you well, so. Proud to have you carrying that through Bedford High School and into whatever you do next, whether it's Auburn or elsewhere. Congratulations. I like watching Auburn speak like that. Going forward, thank you for doing that. It's making Bedford proud. I do have a couple questions. Some were answered regarding continuity and mentorship. One that I had was regarding the identification of the middle schoolers. Like, what were you looking for? Was it certain qualities, or was it them showing interest? Like, how were those folks identified, and moving forward, how will you identify them?
So I was not a part of that process and selection. Ms. Wilson and the administrative team on GGMS all worked out.
I would say that area is probably where our biggest lessons were learned. I don't know if Mr. Hartuni wants to come to that.
Are you
too.
speaking out
Um,
up? Okay.
Well,
Like, this is your
Yeah,
question.
I would say we
but she can answer, but I will, she's been great.
kind of just asked partner schools what they did, and we just jumped in and started, and what we did was we had the 8th grade counselor meet with the 8th grade teams and ask them to generate a list of names. And that's what we went with. We figured, the counselors and the teachers know them best. But we might do it, wait for next year, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, before I just answer that question, I'm very proud of back there. I'm very appreciative of Matt and Betsy and Ariana. When you put a team together and you just say, go, Betsy keeps me informed regularly. I know what's going on. I have like full trust in the process. So thank you, Matt. Thanks, Betsy and Ariana. Hopefully if she's listening, that's what makes the job fun for me too. When I can just lead and just a guide and ask questions, and it's work, but when you're doing that multiple times in multiple different places throughout the day, it's nice, and I don't have to oversee and manage. Oh, I can just manage, but I don't have to worry about it. So thank you for that. Just in terms of picking the players, that was hard, because we never did it before. But something that Betsy was advocating for, and was just let's listen to what hospital. We've never done it, we don't know any better, so let's just go ahead and see how it plays out. And, we'll talk about the process and refine it and make some decisions, and you can ask us again next year, and I think we'll have a different answer.
And I want to acknowledge John's Mr. Artunian's leadership in this. As he can attest, it's something that I maybe pestered him about. But as people who've worked with me know, I sometimes have to okay, maybe not this year, maybe next year, because I always have the next idea. But once John took a hold of it, I said, are we going to do an application process? And John actually had students in mind, and he thought of students who maybe are different now in high school than in middle school, as an example of the growth that you can see. So there's a power, I think, for being asked as well. So I want to give a lot of credit to Mr. Artunian for thinking about the student at BHS, who he knew as middle schoolers to sort of lead, or actually identifying Betsy as a lead educator, and then through supporting a process, I've identified the students, which maybe wasn't an open application, but was really a crafted sort of the team to identify students who might not have applied, right? I think that's part of what I learned, which is, if you just do an open application process, you don't always identify the potential that some students might have if they don't see it in themselves, but to have an adult or a peer see it in them. A lot of credit to that process, to John and the JGMS team. And sort of thinking about how to build a team, and I think the group is input. So.
Matt and Aubriana, we're not, we're not randomly picked.
Yeah, and Aubriana's not here, but I did drop in on a couple of the workshops, and you'd be hard pressed to actually think that they were students. And if you haven't thought about education, you should think about education and say the same to Aubriana. They had command of the room.
And as I was saying, they made their impression on me in middle school, one way or the other, right? And the impression was positive, right? Like, because and for different reasons, right? I've worked in that, you shared some things that maybe I don't know if I would have shared, right? But ultimately, part of the work that I get to do is I get to work with a wide range of students. And I have access to all of them, which can be overwhelming at times. And it's hard to get to know them in my world. However, when the opportunity presents itself to get to know students, right, for whatever reason they're coming across my office, the reason they're with me is not for bad reason all the time. There's a lot of really good reasons for students to be with me. You develop a relationship with those children, with those families, and you see them throughout, the rest of the middle school experience or through high school. And, if you ask questions about the high school counselors and teachers, you try to recognize and understand, okay, so is this the right person for the job, even though it's something that I was hoping it was validated, right? Or of course, the work that they're doing is validated as well to that choice. So I think we have big shoes to fill going into next year, but I think we'll find those people because there's a lot of kids at this school. A lot of them work at a tough job. So I'm really proud of them.
That's
Can I
great.
ask one more question? Something you guys just said prompted an interesting question to me. So you mentioned that Holliston had been through this before. Were you purposely paired with them because they had been new to this?
Yes.
So next year you would turn over, we would kind of be a veteran district that and might get a new school, or do you think, or would the relationship be? With
I
Holliston?
think the Celtics community outreach team and Project 351 have their own
Like the metric.
Yeah.
metric, the pairing.
Yeah.
I would assume that this year we are paired with a more experienced town because we are brand new. I don't know what next year would bring.
It depends on what districts they have in front of them and who needs what that's either. Yeah.
And then I realized,
You know how awesome it is for somebody to say, I don't know, and you ask the question? It's just such a mature answer. Oh my God, that is great.
I realized that we focused mostly on this, but I did have a quick question for the anti-bias task force folks, and where it might also be a Kelly question, but there's one mention here about the curriculum review, which I think is incredibly, very smart and a necessary component to this. But there's a kind of a footnote that said that like we're seeking out grant money to support this review. I just was interested. So what happens if we don't secure grants on this? And like, what is there a plan in place to still make sure this review happens regardless of whether it be grant money or whatever?
We will figure it out. We have, so we've been pretty successful in securing grants to support this work. And I think the way that Dr. Williamson put forward the application with the Cadillac version of what we would like to see in terms of the curriculum review, but we can do it. So I don't know, I shouldn't pick a card, but a lesser, yes, scaled down version of we will be doing the work, and we have PD money set aside. We try to offset as much as we can strategic line with grants. To the other point that Ann brought up, Desi has told us, even though they told me last year we couldn't do it, that we can apply for the new early literacy grants that are coming out. I have expressed my discontent with both Desi and the legislature about the fact that when a local community actually does what people want to, and then they put the grant money out, you're no longer eligible because you've done it. But because of the identified CKLA that we adopted, if you recall, 2 years ago, put out a new version right after we adopted the old version, which addressed a lot of the concerns that Ann raised and teachers have been raising. So we're hoping we can secure grant funding for that as well to actually after the 30, so that would start in the fall of 2027. So we're always actively looking for ways to offset, but this work will continue. We'll find a way.
Thank you.
Great, no, that was actually gonna be my last point, was a note for you, Anne, to say thank you for addressing that. I'm not surprised to hear that we're taking initiative to add to it. Hopefully some of these grants come through, but it does seem very in line with something we've talked about a lot, the Bedford way of taking something existing and bettering it. So kudos to you, the educators, everyone involved in that. I think unless anyone has any last comments, again, thank you. Oh, yes, please.
I just wanted to add one thing, going back to, you know, like the time taken out of this, I loved, you know, going down and taking my time. It was a really good, you know, thing to put my time towards. I would love to see more like advocacy from and understanding of teachers for next year and years on. I think more of it was teachers didn't really understand what it was and what was going on for this year. But there was a lot of work missed. A lot of teachers were forgiving and I appreciate them all for that. I think it would be nice for, you know, the whole, you know, middle school and high school, all of them to kind of know a little more about it and be a little more aware that 2 high school students every year will be going down to middle school multiple times a year, you know, having to miss time for that. I just want to throw that out there.
Thank you for raising.
Yeah,
that.
that's a very thoughtful.
The video should help with that, but, thank you.
And I suspect once this word gets out and travels, you're gonna get a lot of people advocating for more of this. Thank you for coming, thank you for the presentation. It's really great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on to our next agenda item.
But you don't want to just take the phone.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes, good call.
Go back to those ones.
Okay, perfect. All right, it is the annual town meeting amended fiscal year 27 budget increased by $300,916. Discussion and potential vote, Superintendent Schlong and Finance Director Dewey.
So, as you know, at town meeting, our budget was approved, but some of it was double successful, so the amendment on the floor. With the intention of the amendment to add, $300,916, $15 back to the budget appropriated, thank you all. Appropriated from the town, tax process, in order to, with the stated intention to avoid, the imposition of secondary activity fees for first time. Now, the town meeting approves a bottom line budget, and it's school committee's purview in terms of directing how that money is spent. So this is on your agenda to discuss and formalize so that, Julie and I, know exactly what to do. We're prepared to do whatever needs to be done.
Thank you. Yeah, just one comment before we go around to questions. That exact question was asked at the annual town meeting about whether or not you could actually earmark funds. I think it is important to note that we could take it under advisement, which is how I answered at an annual town meeting, but it is ultimately the decision of the school committee. You know, what we end up doing with that money in some ways. So that said, we'll go around for a round of questions and comments, starting with you, Wendy.
Yeah. I'm still trying to wrap my head around this, because before I came on to this position, I was trying to understand that to be feasible more. I know there are a lot of surrounding towns who do it. But I also know that there are towns who don't. And I've been trying to understand, how it would be allocated, like to the different areas. Like, if we're paying, if the kids are paying into it, which hopefully this will, you know, make it so that they don't. Would that money go to, I think we have to, vote on it, but what was your idea with the activity piece, how it would be allocated? Would it be transportation, teachers? And that's what I thought, but I just wanted a little bit of clarification on that.
So, Julie can fill in the details, but the budget was, we established a revolving account, which is required by Master in the law. So that they aggregated appropriately.
Yeah.
And then I believe Julie applied offset to the, cost expense lines that, generate the expenses for the various activities. So I believe coaching that to.
Athletic coaching stipend, our and student activity stipends are both line items in the budget. And the rules with revolving accounts are supported by Mass General laws, they're very regulated in how they operate, and so funds that come into a revolving account need to be expended, in the same vein. So, so there has to be a match between the revenue comes in for student activities and athletics and those expenses. The revenue could be used to bring down slash offset the budgetary, gross expenses, budgets that are associated with those line items, so, you know, without that revenue, the gross, there is nothing to net out of that amount, and so the gross amount would then be budgeted.
What have we spent this year so far on that? We have that number?
Well, the spending in those two line items is much higher than what the fees would have brought in, so it was a partial offset. Yeah.
Yeah, I know, I haven't taken them across.
So, in the budget, the way it was presented to you all, about $139,916 in fee revenue was targeted to, offset student activity stipends that are paid to, our educators who, facilitate the activities. And then 161 of that fee revenue, that projected fee revenue was slated to offset athletic high school, middle school coaching stipends.
Two buckets.
Two buckets.
Now, did the activity fee also include, I thought that it was also, part of the, musicals, no?
Yes, included
Yeah.
activities, would be very
Okay.
broadly.
Yeah.
Your clubs, your musicals, your marching band, your football, your soccer.
I don't think I have any other questions.
See. Does it matter, revolving fund now, Bill? Does that matter, like, do we need to do anything?
Structurally there, there's nothing in it.
I think one of the things, well, so let me say this in two different ways. One, I think to the community, I'm appreciative of for the community's kind of advocacy. And do want to stress that this is not this is a 1 year fix, right? The budget gets set every annually. And this is something that may have to happen again, like we may have to do this next year. Right, if with the budget or the requirements from the finance committee, but there's so many different moving pieces to what building the budget out looks like that. You know, and again, I appreciate it. But I do think that folks have to just remind themselves that there's a lot of moving parts to what town meeting is and what that looks like, right? There's a small representation of the community as a whole that attends this event and votes and makes these decisions, right? But the community as a whole, right, can't always be there, right? And that's something I think we just need to, we as a community, right, need to kind of just keep in mind when we choose to do things in this way. And I'm gonna be one to say, like, it's possible, right, that we still might have to do this next year, right? Or if there was a, you know, truly unforeseen circumstances and other components of our budget, right, still may be gonna be a necessity. And so I kind of just want to put that out there, so the community hears it, they understand it, you know. We understand the intent, right, and again, I'm sure we will take that under advisement as we kind of figure out what this looks like with, you know, for the coming year. It's just, you know. Our surrounding towns do this, there's a reason why they do this. And it's something that I think is really important for us to just keep in mind for the future, so. That's my soapbox, and I'll step up at that.
Sheila. Thank you. I share some similar views to Angels in that, and I think we had talked probably at town meeting about it. But to put the budget together is a multi-month process with hundreds of hours by several stakeholders and looking at all of the different parts of it. And one of the things that I think was very important as we were going through this, we had a lot of meetings about it. We sought community feedback. we tried to take everything into consideration, in addition to balancing what FinCom was asking us to do, so we could balance the overall town budget. And we didn't want to destabilize the school system and preserve as many teachers as possible. And I think we also sort of zoomed out and looked at, several communities do, you know, have an activities fee. And we took a lot of efforts to make sure that no one would be denied participating in any activity. If a family would, you know, it's not they had to show up with their W-2 form to improve that, right? We went through a lot of, you know, sort of iterations to make it easy for families to request that from a waiver perspective, so no one was denied the opportunity to participate in any activities. We come from a town where, you know, from K through 8, you pay the rec department to go play soccer on Saturday afternoons or Saturday morning. We have a lot of families that pay thousands of dollars for club sports. So it's not unreasonable to say, if you're gonna play all of these high school sports, and you do all these activities, as we are looking to balance a budget in a very complex situation with a lot of moving parts, it's not unreasonable. So I echo Angel's sentiment that maybe we avoided it for this year. We can't guarantee that that's always going to be the case going forward. But the school committee really reassured all of our stakeholders in our community several times that no one would be denied the opportunity. So I ask people to keep that in mind.
So I think we're gonna make a motion tonight to instruct the superintendent to not charge these fees, and so that's that. So, and I just want to be clear, because my understanding of the way this would happen budgetarily is that the amount we're spending is the same as it was to be planned before. The amount we're planning to spend is what we were budgeting to spend before. The only difference is that we now have a little more revenue coming from the town that is replacing revenue we were expecting to get from the fees. And so those things that you figured out how to put the fees into subtracting, you now just cancel those line items and we're back to spending the same amount of money. So this has no effect on expenditures. It only affects the other side of it, and actually.
Yeah.
The person who's like changed the most is yours probably, because you just have to change a few things in the budget, but the rest of it is pretty much the same story. And then we're not gonna have fees. So if that's the motion.
You have described that very clearly, and there is the detailed line item exhibit in the budget shows the gross budget and then the offsets. And so you can, if you refer back to that, you can see the gross expense for coaches. That's what we'll just revert to. And in fact, instead of the fees, you get it from the town.
Yeah,
Correct.
good. So we're not doing it allocating, we just.
No.
That's all I wanted to make sure.
It's a simple,
But, because that's already done, spent on the expenditure side. Okay, I don't have any other questions then.
Yeah, just to follow up, we're not changing the numbers, we're just giving directional feedback as to how we want those numbers and how we want to collect. You know, first, I think everyone else already said this, we appreciate the town's support of our budget, both as proposed and as amended. You know, that's not lost on us that we make up a large part of that budget, is we appreciate the support. And I mean, no one sitting up here wants fees, you know, I know that I talked to that at the annual town meeting, no one up here is, oh, I can't wait to institute fees. We did it to address the financial reality in a thoughtful way, and, you know, that thoughtful way did involve pulling comps, which the vast majority of them instituted fees. Ours were lower than most. It involved multiple meetings of robust discussion. It involved a lot of back and forth with our community. There was comment. It was a process, you know, a thoughtful process. And to that, I know we've said this, I would encourage people who want to get involved to the best of their ability, attend the meetings, ask our questions, send emails, read the citizen articles. You know, get involved and do this earlier if possible, understanding that not everyone has the ability. But whenever there's an opportunity, we would love our room filled with people for these budget hearings. They're not the most attended meetings sometimes, so ask us all the questions here. And to that note, you know, this is a 1 year, as Andrew said, a 1 year fix or a directional feedback or commitment by the school committee. On this note, you know, we're in a tough financial reality right now in our town, and the fees that we were instituting were results of many hours of collaboration. We worked with all the other town boards, with FinCom, Brad and I served as chair and vice chair on a fiscal planning group. There was a lot of robust discussion and presentation, so this was not taken lightly. I think similarly, we're not taking this decision to not generate revenue totally lightly, and we'll have to revisit this in a year. But that said, we appreciate the support. You know, we did our best with this one, and I'm gonna propose this motion if anyone would like to move. May I hear a motion that the school committee reapproves the fiscal year 27 operating budget in the amount of $53,998,325 in recognition of the amendment adding $300,916 to the original request of $53,697,409 approved at annual town meeting on March 24th, 2026. The school committee directs the superintendent not to collect the previously proposed secondary all access activity fees during fiscal year 27.
So moved.
Second,
Sheila has moved, Brad has seconded. We're gonna have a roll call vote.
I just ask one question before we get to the vote about the word secondary. So does that mean all access activity fees are not included? Why is the word secondary? in this?
We'll be able to do it.
Would you like to make, suggest a change to the motion, or are you okay?
So, but there's no fees for K through 12, are there?
We originally talked about primary, but in the final proposal, we're going to second.
That's what, okay, that's what I'm getting. Okay, great, thank you. Okay, thank you, no, that's.
So remind me, Sheila moved,
Brad second.
Brad seconded.
I did, yeah, I guess.
Did you?
Yes.
Okay. Roll call vote, Wendy. Angel,
Yes.
Sheila.
Yes.
Brad.
Yes.
I'm a yes, 5-0. Thank you. Moving on to our next agenda item, it is the superintendent contract renewal with the terms of July 1, 2026 to June 30th, 2029, and vote that contract. Yes, I get to manage to misplace this. Thank you. All right. This is a memo to the members of the Bedford School Committee from OBC Grunt, Council for the committee, dated April 3rd, 2026. Subject matter superintendent contract renewal July 1, 2026 to June 30th, 2029 vote. At your April 6th meeting, you will be presented with a draft of the superintendent's contract renewal for the period of July 1, 2026 through June 30, 2029, as discussed during the April 1st executive session. I have prepared this draft for the committee's review and consideration. The proposed contract is attached for your reference. Apart from the salary adjustment and minor language changes, there are no other substantive changes from Superintendent Schwann's initial contract. So we have this contract. It was posted in advance of the meeting. When was it posted? But it was Friday. For anyone who would like to either see it or has already seen it, it was made available on Friday. And we have it in our materials as well. So again, that is a 3-year term starting July 1, 2026 to June 30th, 2029. And to clarify, because Superintendent Schwann's current contract goes through June 30th, 2027, after the 1-year rollover from our not giving him, our failure to not renew his contract in October. This first year of the contract will supersede, meaning it will start effective July 1, 2026. In fact, going to a 3-year term as of the end of this first initial contract. Hopefully that is clear. Everything is again available online for anyone watching or anyone who wishes to see the draft contract that we are considering. So that contract available, we will go around starting with you.
I do not have any questions. Am I supposed to vote or do you have questions? Okay, no questions.
I have no questions.
Sure, I have no questions.
I have no questions, but I would like to make a couple of comments about this before we actually do the votes. This has been a vote that we knew was coming for months now, and I have been thinking very, very hard about how I would be voting when it came time to consider this renewal. You will all recall that we voted in June, and there was a contract at that point. To be clear, the consequence of tonight's vote would be actually a 2-year extension, because actually Superintendent Schwang already has 1 year, guaranteed by this. So as you properly said, it is replacing the current, so it is a 3-year contract, and that is the term, that was the issue that, was of most concern to me when we first started. What has made this a little bit difficult for me is that it's been pretty clear to me for some time that my vote would not likely have an instrumental effect on the outcome of the school committee's overall vote. So then I start to realize that my vote becomes pretty symbolic in nature, and I wanted to use it appropriately. Now, we have heard over the last months, and literally as recently as tonight, from families, teachers, students, about things that they would prefer to see different about our superintendents. And I do not want to give anyone the impression that we are not hearing that commentary. I do not want to give anyone the impression that a renewal of a contract would indicate that it is a rubber stamp endorsement of a perfect superintendent. In fact, quite the contrary, my own take on things, based on what I hear and what I observe, and I hear from all kinds of people, and it's hard to evaluate how much to put weight on different people, but one must form an opinion. My own take on it is that Superintendent Schwang is a new superintendent. We knew that when we hired him. He's been in the job now for 3 years. Prior to that, he had almost no administrative experience in an educational system. So he's learning how to do this job. And we knew what that was when we hired him. One of the areas that many people have commented about, and I personally believe has some merits, is that there's some leadership style and professional climate concerns that are not landing as well as they could on everybody throughout the system. On the other hand, there are many people who are avid supporters that are singing the praises of Superintendent Schwang in ways that make us feel like we have great find here in our new superintendent. So that sort of, I don't know, ambivalence, if you will, has really kind of made me struggle a little bit. And then I sort of remembered something that is a really important value here in Bedford that we try to inculcate in our kids throughout the educational system. And that is to think about ourselves through the thing we call this growth mindset, not a fixed mindset. And I think that, what a fixed mindset means. It means, well, this person is good or bad, and that's the way it is forever. Or I'm good at math, and therefore I'm gonna be good at math, or I'm bad at math, and I can never learn math. Well, that's a fixed mindset, and that's not a very healthy way to go through life. I think the healthy way is to have a growth mindset. And I think that I personally wish we hold those growth mindsets about ourselves and also about other people. And that's the way I feel about our superintendent right now. I think there are things that our superintendent needs to do better. I think there are things that, and this is the important part, that he can do better. And I think he will do those things better. I think we're going to expect him to do those things better. But I would probably say that about any person sitting in his job. Now, we just have to get a little bit more supportive and helpful and focused on how to make those things better, get actually better. Because I believe that Mr. Schwang wants to be the best Mr. Schwang he can be, and I think he wants to be the best superintendent he can be, and I think he's gonna get better in the next 3 years. So, I think Akil said this months ago, we as a community need some healing, and that really landed on me as a succinct statement of the right way forward here. So I'm going to vote yes to support Mr. Schwang's renewal. I think this is what the community needs. I think what we need to do is look forward and get on with the job of taking care of and educating our children. And I think the best way to do that is with the staff that we have in place, with the support of the people that can help them do their job as effectively as they can. So that's where I am on this. I just wanted to make it clear why I'm voting, what I'm voting. So, thanks.
I don't have prepared statements, but I was going to actually refer to Akil as well when he came and sat
And
over
we didn't
here.
talk about that.
Right, we didn't talk about that, and he said we're in a period of healing and rebuilding, and I think the way to do that is to keep our students top of mind. And, we can do that best with our central office that we currently have. So with that said, I'm going to make a motion. Or may I hear a motion that the school committee approve the superintendent contract for July 1, 2026 to June 30th, 2029 as presented.
So moved.
Second,
Sheila has moved, Brad has seconded, roll call vote, Wendy.
I'm gonna vote yes, and can I make a
Sure,
comment?
absolutely.
Okay, I didn't know if I could make a comment or not, or like, or I just wanted to say yes or no. Just like Brad, I had a hard time coming to this as well, and not from my interactions, and you guys know so much more than I do, and I'm trying to get onboarded as fast as I can. And I think any concerns that I have will be addressed in the evaluation, and just like Brad said, we can do better, and we are in this process of healing. And becoming more unified, that's what, I've talked about for a long time, and with the anti-hate, anti-bias, that came out of where things were just a mess. And I've seen the progress with that. And I was part of that with Todd and with Anne, and I'm just so proud of the work that we've done there. So I think that we can all hold each other accountable, and the superintendent, and make that more unified, make more connections within our community. So my vote is going to be yes.
Angel.
Yes. I have no comments, just yes.
Sheila.
Yes, and with a thank you to Superintendent Schwang for your continued leadership. To Brad's point, I think there's opportunity for everyone in all the roles they played everywhere to continue to be active listeners and active participants, and for us to collaborate and work together. And I look forward to doing that with you, Cliff, as we enter into your next contract.
Brad,
yes,
anything?
I said it all.
Making sure. I am also a yes. I have heard from many of you in various ways, in grocery stores and emails and phone calls and, unexpected and expected ways. And I think a vote of yes is the vote that I've been charged to do in this position. So that said, I'm a yes. The motion passes, Superintendent Schwang's contract passes 5-0 to 0. Superintendent Schwang, do you want to say anything?
I do have a few remarks. Thank you, members of the school committee, for your trust and support. I'm profoundly grateful for the opportunity to continue serving the Bedford Public Schools community over the next 3 years, and I do not take it for granted. This past year has not been without its challenges. I'm not a perfect superintendent or leader or person, but I have reflected on the areas that require growth, and I'm committed to doing so. We have heard many voices across our community, those who have offered support, those who have asked hard questions, and those who care deeply about our schools. Those are not mutually exclusive. While we have not always agreed, we do share a commitment to the excellence of our schools, and that is what will keep us grounded. As we look ahead, our work is clear. We will continue to advance our strategic plan, strengthen learning outcomes for all of our students, and build on efforts like the Anti-Hate and Bias Task Force to ensure that every student feels safe, seen, and supported. Even as we navigate real budget challenges, we remain committed to preserving the well-rounded educational experience that makes Bedford special. I'm optimistic about what we can accomplish together, and I'm ready to lead with focus, collaboration, teamwork, and a continued commitment to doing what is best for our students. Thank you very much for the opportunity to do so.
Thank you. All right, moving on to our last agenda item, which is the superintendent report. Superintendent Schwang.
Yes, I have a few things to report on. We will be giving a complete fiscal rundown at our next meeting next Tuesday, including our Q3 report, where we'll report on fiscal 26 and our progress to date. I will also be giving a point in time capture of the FY 27 budget process. As you have heard about even a bit tonight, it did involve a reduction of 18.5 positions. We are down to roughly 2 positions in Unit A that will result in actual job loss. We continue to work very hard to see if we can meet student needs with staff who we believe if we can retain them, we should. We are in the midst, I sat all day today with Dr. Williamson and the team of sectioning, and I can report that it is very similar to the past years. In fact, in some cases, we're maybe going to be able to offer more of the first choice courses. None of the courses at any of the levels in the programs of study have been eliminated. All of the support courses that are provided through the Academic Achievement Center and Skills Center, both at the middle and the high school, are still being offered. We are going to meet student needs. It may look a little different in order to address the reality that we're facing fiscally, but we are continuing to do that process to make sure that students are getting what they need. And it has come to my attention that there's been some concern about whether or not that BHS schedules will be done by June. As some of you may recall, my first summer, I witnessed Arena Day, and I was confused as to whether we were selling a brand new iPhone because the line was out the door for kids to try to get their schedule dealt with in late August. We made a shift as a team to moving the scheduling process to be done substantively in June in my second year, and we did it again last year, and we are on track and committed to doing so again this year. It is a little more complicated because we've had some moving parts in terms of the staffing, but we are in the midst of that process, and we are continuing on course to complete that process as we have in the last couple of years. So I'll give more detail on again, both the fiscal 26 budget and fiscal 27 budget at the next meeting. I want to formally welcome Wendy to the committee, and I look forward to working with you in the new capacity. We've worked together all 3 years already. I did want to update also on some good news related to the crossing guards. So Charlie, a community member, is now the morning crossing guard who you should see at all 3 crossings. We have worked with CERT, thank you to Brad for the idea. A community volunteer is covering the Davis crossing, and a member of our own central office team is volunteering to cover the JGMS block. I think the fact that it's now spring and warmer put it this way. So at this point, we patrol either the SRO or patrol or traffic supervisor officers covering the lane after school shift, which is the one that actually is the most important because of the corner there, if you know what I'm talking about. But the Chief Fong and I have also we haven't signed yet, but we've negotiated a memorandum of understanding to clarify the systems and structures to ensure that we never have a crossing that is not guarded. That was not the case before this issue was raised in public comment, and we took a closer look. But we now have a system that is a true partnership between BPS and BPD to ensure that those crossing guards are covered. We are still looking for an afternoon crossing guard. It's a great gig. So if you know anyone, please send them our way.
And substitute crossing guards.
And we want to have backup substitute crossing guards, but we're very, very grateful for the community effort that it has taken to sort of patch together a system right now that does work, most importantly, to keep our kids safe. I think the last thing I want to mention is that people might be interested in hearing about what the next steps are for the Healthy School Hours Initiative. We've had some very in-depth conversations with the original adult, I now call it the Adult Healthy School Hours Working Group, but Dr. Williamson, myself, and Assistant Principal O'Grady had some great conversations with students, and I will say I told you so in terms of we should have had them part of this process earlier. They came up with some great ideas today, more broadly about well-being that we're going to need to look into. But I will give a full update after we synthesize that information from these 2 working groups and share that plan for the May 5th agenda because the next one is, finance something. And spring sports, JJ Miss Musical underway this weekend, go see it. Build it.
All right. Does anyone have anything to add? Questions, comments? Wendy?
So the student input, as I know that was brought up in, public comment, all of that will be analyzed and given to us at May fifth.
Yes.
Okay.
Angel?
Thank you for the updates. I have one update that I would just like to hear about, not necessarily today, but soon is. I have not heard any additional information about our busing.
Thank you.
Survey or opt-in thing that we all decided was a wonderful and great idea, but now we haven't done it yet. So I'd like to just see that we get that moving and going, and so that it's available to our wonderful partners at Bedford Charter, sooner rather than later.
Maybe a little sneak preview of what was shared. I think all agree that looking into the bus routing, whether we do anything or not with respect to hours, is something we have to do now. Anyway, so thank you for the prod to make sure we get the data that we need to analyze that carefully. We got a lot of very anecdotal and helpful data from the students this morning, real time on the ground, sort of their experience in terms of. But it has to be triangulated with obviously the bus company, there may be reasons for things that are happening, students don't realize that, they knew that too, it was great to see them recognize that.
That was it.
Yeah,
Nope.
sure.
No, just a reminder, I will not be at the next school committee meeting in person.
Right.
Any questions?
My only other reminder is the military student breakfast is coming up April 17th. So for those attending this great event, I go for you and let's go. So. It's not, it's for high school students, it's for staff, it's for
But I don't think.
guests. I shouldn't, please
That's
go
not-
if you're invited. I see. I take it back. When everyone shows up at that.
But it is the month of the military child, so it is a good time to think
Yes,
about.
wear purple, purple is the color of the military child, dandelion is the flower, they
Especially right
bloom
now.
wherever they're planted, purple is a mix of all the colors. As are our military families, so celebrate in the ways you will. Leave it at that. That said, if there is nothing else, if there is no further business under the open session agenda, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn the public meeting.
So moved.
Second. Angel has moved, Sheila has seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the ayes have it. This meeting is adjourned at 8:52 PM.